Some works of art are just, well, they're so monumental, they feel like they exist outside of time, you know. T.S. Eliot famously claimed, Dante and Shakespeare divide the world between them. There is no third. Big claim. So, okay, let's unpack that a bit today. We are diving deep into a true literary giant, a journey through the medieval mind that honestly still shapes how we think about good and evil, heaven and hell. Dante Alighieri's Inferno. You've shared some amazing sources with us, literary analysis, art history, pop culture takes, deep dives into symbolism. So our mission here is to pull out the most important nuggets, connect those dots, and help you understand not just what Dante created, but why, after all this time, it still grabs us. Why it captivates across centuries, across cultures.
It's really fascinating, isn't it? How this one worked, written way back in the 14th century, just leaped out of its original context. It's become this kind of universal story, influencing, everything from high art to video games. So yeah, we'll explore that intricate structure, the really potent symbolism, and talk about how, Dante's own personal beliefs, his politics, his philosophy, it all got baked right into the core of the Inferno.
Okay, let's start with the man himself, Dante Alighieri. Born in Florence, 1265, lived until 1321. And he wasn't just a poet. The sources list him as a political philosopher, a statesman, even a soldier. He was right in the thick of it.
He really was. And his absolute masterpiece, the Divine Comedy, La Divina Commedia, it's this epic allegorical journey. 3 parts: Christian framework, hell, Inferno, which we're focusing on, then purgatory, and finally paradise. One source, Tom DeLappa, rightly calls it a medieval masterpiece, but also a precursor to the Renaissance, which is spot on. And the way he wrote it, it's in his own unique verse form, terza rima. It's this 3-line interlocking rhyme scheme. It creates this constant forward pull, like it's dragging you deeper and deeper into the story, canto by canto.
Canto being like a chapter.
Exactly, like chapters. And there are 33 cantos per part, plus an introductory one for Inferno. Each one is pretty long, maybe 115 to 160 lines. We're talking over 14,000 lines total, mostly in this specific rhythm, hendecasyllabic, almost always 11 syllables per line. It's quite an achievement.
But it's got such a personal feel, too, doesn't it? The main character, the hero, is Dante, the pilgrim. And he's guided first by Virgil, the ancient Roman poet who wrote the Aeneid. Then later, in Paradise, Beatrice Portinari takes over. His muse, his sort of immortal love, it really grounds this huge symbolic journey.
It absolutely does. And that personal touch, it extends to the symbolism. The whole journey isn't just about Dante the guy. It's meant as a symbolic path for, well, any Christian, every man, trying to find their way back to God, basically. Even the timing is symbolic. He starts this journey in the year 1300. It's Good Friday, March 25th. And Dante, the character, is 35 years old.
Which was seen as midway through the biblical lifespan of 70 years.
Exactly. Midway upon the journey of our life, as the poem famously starts.
Like the opening line. Midway upon the journey of our life, I found myself within a forest dark. It just plunges you right in, this moment of sin, confusion. He's lost the straight way.
And bam, right away, his path is blocked. 3 beasts. A leopard symbolizing lust, a lion for pride, and a she-wolf representing avarice or greed.
So these are the sins that lead you to hell.
They represent those core sins, yeah. And they drive him back into the darkness of error. And you really can't understand Inferno without knowing about Dante's own life. His family was involved in Florentine politics. He himself got exiled in 1302 by this group called the Black Guelphs, who were allied with the Pope at the time.
A chromatic event, surely.
Absolutely. And that exile, that bitterness, it fueled so much of the writing. You'll see a lot of real Florentine figures, including his enemies, populating the circles of hell.
Okay, so after that dark forest, Dante, guided by Virgil, begins the descent. Tell us about the structure of this hell.
So picture this. 9 concentric circles, like a giant funnel digging down into the earth. Each circle represents a category of sin, getting progressively worse as you go down. It culminates right at the center of the earth.
And there's this key concept, contrapasso.
Yes, contrapasso. It's crucial. It basically makes poetic justice. The punishment fits the crime, often in a really symbolic, sometimes grotesque way. The torment isn't just random pain. It's like a living metaphor for the sin itself. It reflects the soul state.
Give us an example.
Okay, like the fortune tellers. Because they tried to look ahead to see the future illegitimately, in hell their heads are twisted completely backward on their bodies so they can only see behind them, forced to walk backward for eternity.
Wow, okay, that's vivid. And this structure, these circles, they reflect a kind of moral hierarchy.
Definitely. Dante draws on both Aristotle's philosophy and Christian theology. It's quite a system. Upper hell, circles 2 through 5, deals with sins of incontinence. Think lust, gluttony, greed, anger, basically failures to control passions and appetites. Less about malice, more about weakness.
Okay.
But then you go deeper. Lower hell, circles 7 through 9. That's where you find violence and fraud. These are seen as much worse because they involve using reason and intellect for evil, deliberate malice. So the punishments get much harsher.
And he added some specifically Christian categories, too.
Right. Circle 1 is limbo for the virtuous non-Christians, and circle 6 is for heresy. These don't quite fit the Aristotelian model, so they're distinct additions.
Let's walk through a few key places. It sounds like even before the first circle, there's a kind of waiting room.
That's right, the vestibule. This is for the uncommitted. The opportunists, the fence-sitters who never chose good or evil. They're not technically in hell, but they're not in heaven either. They just chase a blank banner forever, stung by wasps and hornets. Maggots writhe in the blood and piss at their feet.
Grim. What's the symbolism there?
It's about spiritual stagnation. They never made a real choice, so they're forever pursuing nothing, tormented by their guilty conscience, represented by the stinging insects. Dante even thinks he sees Pope Celestine V there, who famously abdicated the papacy, the Great Refusal.
And then the famous gate.
Ah, yes, the gate of hell. With that inscription, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here," just chilling, sets the tone immediately, no turning back.
They cross a river, Acheron.
With Charon, yeah, the demonic ferryman from mythology. He initially refuses Dante because he's still alive, but Virgil commands him to let them pass.
And circle 1 is limbo. Virgil's home, essentially.
Exactly. It's for the unbaptized infants and the virtuous pagans. Think Homer, Socrates, Plato, even figures from the Hebrew Bible before Christ, though some were supposedly rescued during the harrowing of hell. They aren't tortured, but they live without hope in a kind of shadowland, forever separated from God's light. It shows Dante's respect for classical wisdom, but also his firm Christian boundaries.
Then circle 2, lust. What happens there?
Here, the carnal malefactors, those ruled by lust, are swept around endlessly by violent winds, just like they were swept away by their passions in life. That's the contrapasso.
Oh, okay.
And it's here Dante actually faints out of pity when he hears the story of Paolo and Francesca. It shows he's still very human, very sympathetic at this early stage of his journey. He has to learn detachment.
Let's jump down a bit. Circle 7, violence. That sounds pretty intense.
It is. It's subdivided into 3 rings. Violence against neighbors, murderers, and tyrants are immersed in a river of boiling blood, phlegathon. Centaurs patrol the banks, shooting arrows at anyone who tries to rise too high.
And violence against oneself. Suicides.
That's maybe one of the most striking images. Suicides are turned into gnarled, thorny trees. They can only speak when a branch is broken and they bleed. Harpies feed on their leaves, causing constant pain. Dante sees it as an insult to the body because they rejected their human form. Pietro della Vigna tells his tragic story here.
And the 3rd ring.
Violence against God, art, and nature. Blasphemers lie flat on burning sand under a rain of fire. Sodomites walk endlessly on the burning sand. Usurers huddle, also on the burning sand, with money bags around their necks. Dante considered usury a kind of violence against art, which stems from nature, which stems from God.
Okay, then circle 8, fraud. Male bulge, evil pockets. This sounds complex.
It's huge. 10 different ditches, each for a specific type of conscious fraud, sins of deception, using reason to trick others.
Give us a few examples.
Oh, there's so many. Panderers and seducers are whipped by demons. Flatterers are sunk in human excrement. Simoniacs, corrupt church officials like Pope Nicholas III, are stuffed headfirst into holes with their feet on fire. Sorcerers have their heads twisted backward, remember? Corrupt politicians or barrators are plunged into boiling pitch, guarded by demons with grappling hooks called malebranche.
It goes on.
Oh, yes. Hypocrites wear heavy robes that are gilded gold on the outside but made of lead inside. Thieves are constantly bitten by snakes and transform into reptiles, losing their human form. False counselors like Ulysses are encased in flames. Sowers of discord, religious or political, like Muhammad and Ali, are literally torn apart and then healed, only to be torn apart again. Falsifiers, alchemists, counterfeiters suffer various diseases. It's a catalog of human betrayal and deception.
And finally, the bottom. Circle 9, treachery, Cocytus.
The deepest point, and get this, it's not fire, it's ice. A vast frozen lake.
Why ice?
It symbolizes the complete opposite of God's warmth and love. Treachery is the ultimate cold-hearted sin, the denial of all bonds. It's divided into 4 rounds based on who is betrayed.
Which are?
Kinora, for traitors to kin. Antenora, for traitors to country or party. Here you find Count Ugolino famously gnawing on the head of Archbishop Ruggieri. A truly horrific scene.
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Ptolemaea, for traitors to guests. Eerily, Dante suggests some souls fall here even before their bodies die on Earth, possessed by demons. And finally, Giudecca, for traitors to lords and benefactors. These souls are completely submerged in the ice, silent and immobile.
And at the very bottom,
Satan himself, Lucifer, Dante calls him, a monstrous, three-faced giant frozen mid-chest in the ice at the center of the earth. His wings beat, creating the icy wind that freezes Cocytus.
3 faces.
Yeah, each face eternally chewing on one of the ultimate traitors. In the center mouth, Judas Iscariot, betrayer of Christ. In the side mouths, Brutus and Cassius, betrayers of Julius Caesar, representing a betrayal of the highest earthly authority in Dante's view. For Dante, these are the absolute worst sinners.
So after witnessing all of that, how do they get out?
It's quite ingenious, really. They climb down Satan's hairy legs. Since he's at the exact center of the earth, once they pass his waist, gravity flips and they find themselves climbing up towards the other side of the world. They emerge through a cavern, finally seeing the stars again, on Easter Sunday morning. It's this powerful symbol of rebirth, escaping sin's gravity, moving towards the light. A truly epic end to the descent.
So this incredibly vivid imagery, it obviously didn't just stay on the page, right? The influence on art seems massive.
Oh, absolutely immense. One source, Jean-Pierre Baricelli, even argues the Divine Comedy inspired more art with more enthusiasm than the Bible itself, which is quite a statement.
That is a statement.
Yeah.
T.S. Eliot praised Dante for making ideas into clear visual images. I guess that's why artists latched onto it.
Exactly. It's practically a screenplay in verse. Early on, you had artists like Sandro Botticelli doing detailed illustrations for printed editions in the late 15th century. Federico Zuccari used these striking red and black chalks just for the Inferno section.
And it influenced the big names, too.
Definitely. Think about Hieronymus Bosch's crazy, surreal depictions of hell. You can see echoes of Dante there. Michelangelo's Final Judgment in the Sistine Chapel clearly draws on Inferno's descriptions of the damned and their torments.
Then a big revival in the 19th century.
Huge revival. You get artists like Henry Fuseli, William Blake. Blake's illustrations are amazing, though he puts his own unique philosophical spin on everything. Ingres painted the famous scene of Paolo and Francesca.
But the name everyone seems to know is Gustave Doré.
Ah, Doré. Yes. His woodcut engravings from the mid-19th century are probably the most famous and enduring images of the Inferno. They're incredibly popular, commercially successful. They just have this visionary eye, these dramatic lights and shadows that really capture the poem's atmosphere. They still define how many people picture Dante's hell today.
And it continued into the 20th century.
It did. You get all sorts of interpretations. Franz von Barros did Art Nouveau versions, sometimes quite erotic. Salvador Dali created a whole series of surreal lithographs. Robert Rauschenberg did these fascinating transfer drawings, putting Inferno into a modern context with figures like JFK. Renato Gattuso even did Marxist-inspired caricatures based on it. It just keeps proving adaptable.
And that adaptability extends beyond traditional art, right? Into pop culture.
Oh, definitely. The sources list quite a few examples. Films like Lars von Trier's The House That Jack Built, or As Above, So Below, which is literally set in the catacombs beneath Paris, drawing direct parallels.
There was a very early silent film, too.
Yeah, L'Inferno from 1911, one of the first feature-length films ever made in Italy. Then you have films like Robin Williams' What Dreams May Come, which visually borrows a lot. David Fincher's Seven, with its killer theming murders around the 7 deadly sins, clearly echoes Dante's structure.
Animated versions, TV shows.
Yep, Dante's Inferno, an animated epic. On TV, the cartoon miniseries Over the Garden Wall has strong Dantean themes. A British detective show, Messiah, apparently based its whole 4th season around the circles of hell. And of course, video games.
Right, the Dante's Inferno game for PS3, a very direct adaptation.
A very action-heavy adaptation, but yes, follows the structure quite closely.
So with all these versions and influences, if someone actually wants to read the Inferno itself, where should they start? The sources mentioned there are a ton of translations, verse, prose.
That is a really good question, and yeah, there are many. It kind of depends what you're looking for. If you want something poetic, capturing the feel of the verse, John Ciardi's translation is a classic, very vibrant, quite direct. Robert Pinsky, a former poet laureate, also did a well-regarded verse translation.
What about something more literal?
Alan Mandelbaum's version is often recommended for its fidelity to the original Italian, line by line. Another great option, especially if you want to really dig in, is the one by Robert Durling and Ronald Martinez. It has the original Italian on one page and the English translation facing it, plus extensive notes.
Oh, that sounds useful.
It's excellent for study. And Clive James also did a notable, if sometimes idiosyncratic, translation. Really, the best advice might be to maybe read the opening canto in a few different versions online or at a library and see which one clicks with you, whose voice feels right.
Good advice. Okay, let's dig a bit deeper now into the meaning behind it all. It's obviously more than just a horror story. It's a profound moral allegory, as the sources say.
Absolutely. Dante the writer is taking Dante the pilgrim on this journey of spiritual growth, of understanding sin, but you definitely get the sense that Dante the writer is also using hell to settle some scores.
Right, his own opinions, his ill feelings towards Florence and the people who exiled him, they seem baked in.
Very much so. How he orders the sins, for instance.
Yeah.
Putting simony selling church offices lower down, deeper in hell than many violent crimes. That reflects his specific moral outrage at the corruption he saw in the church.
It's his personal moral hierarchy laid out geographically.
Pretty much. And the Contrapasso reinforces this, the idea that the sin itself becomes the punishment. Their own ruling passion torments them. It's not just an external penalty.
And modern scholars look at this through different lenses now too, right? Like feminist theory.
Yeah, that's a really interesting development mentioned in the sources, looking at figures like Medusa not just as a monster, but maybe as a symbol related to the fear of the female gaze, or analyzing Beatrice, his guide in paradise, as this perhaps passive, idealized figure of womanhood compared to the more complex or damned women in hell. It adds new layers to the interpretation.
And the politics.
Yeah.
We touched on his exile, but it seems like his political life is just woven through the entire fabric of the Inferno.
It absolutely is. You can't separate Dante the poet from Dante the politician, the white Guelph who got kicked out of his beloved Florence.
So he puts his enemies in hell.
Oh, yeah. Popes he disagreed with, rival political leaders, prominent Florentines, they're all there, suffering punishments tailored to their perceived crimes against Florence or the church, as Dante saw it.
But it's not just personal revenge, is it? There's a bigger political philosophy.
Right. His placement of Brutus and Cassius alongside Judas is key. They betrayed Julius Caesar, the founder of the Roman Empire, which Dante saw as the legitimate, God-ordained secular authority. So, betraying your rightful lord, whether it's Christ or Caesar, is the ultimate sin, the ultimate breakdown of order.
And Virgil, his guide, fits into this too.
Perfectly. Virgil represents human reason, yes, but also the glory of the Roman Empire. He bridges the classical world and the Christian world, the empire and the church, the two powers Dante believed should guide humanity. Virgil embodies that ideal balance that Dante felt was lost in his own time.
Okay, so we have the moral dimension, the political dimension. What about the philosophy? Dante was clearly well read.
Extremely well read. Steeped in Aristotle, Plato, Augustine, Thomas Aquinas, the Inferno and the whole comedy is deeply philosophical. It tackles huge questions about free will, divine justice, the nature of sin, the relationship between reason and faith.
Like Plato's idea of innate knowledge, how does that come in?
Well, the whole journey is arguably about recovering innate knowledge of the good, escaping the dark wood of ignorance and sin to remember the soul's true path towards God. Some interpretations see the entire journey as a kind of philosophical purification, a death and resurrection of the self.
And the paradox of the virtuous pagans in limbo? That seems like a philosophical problem for him.
It really is. He deeply admires figures like Virgil, Plato, Aristotle. He recognizes their immense wisdom and virtue, yet his Christian theology forces him to place them outside of heaven because they weren't baptized. Limbo is his attempt to reconcile that deep respect with his theological framework. It's a sign of that constant interplay in Dante between classical philosophy and Christian doctrine.
It's fascinating how our understanding keeps evolving, too. The sources mention how academic focus has shifted over the last century.
Right. Early 20th century critics might have focused more on Fordian or Jungian interpretations, looking for archetypes. Now, as we mentioned, you see more analyses through feminist theory, queer theory, post-colonial theory. We're always reading these classic texts through the lens of our own time, asking new questions.
And the challenge of translation always brings new perspectives, too.
Definitely. Every translation is an interpretation, trying to bridge that 700-year gap from medieval Tuscan Italian to modern English.
So, wrapping this up,
Wow.
it's really amazing how a work this old rooted in such a different worldview, still resonates so powerfully.
It truly is. Alison Cornish at NYU, mentioned in your sources, made a great point. She said for many non-Italian readers today, it feels almost exotic, maybe even like a contemporary video game, because it creates this complete immersive universe with its own strict rules and boundaries.
That's an interesting take. Like a perfectly designed world, even if it's hell.
Yeah, there's a compelling internal logic to it, even in its horror.
And maybe that's part of why it endures. It tackles these huge universal questions about choices, consequences, good, evil, things we all grapple with. In a way, maybe it's still a guide, like Virgil was for Dante, for navigating our own dark woods. So here's a final thought to leave you with. As you consider Dante's journey from that dark wood down through the ice and back up towards the stars, what does his specific medieval vision of sin, punishment, and redemption challenge, or maybe even affirm, in your own understanding of morality and the consequences of our actions today?